Okay, welcome everyone. So tonight's class we've titled Acceptance Being the Gateway into the Soul. And really what the class is about dealing with the circumstances that exist within a person's life and the general way or approach that a person has when certain things aren't going the way that they want them to go is we fight against them. It's almost like there's a perpetual thinking in the mind that if we really lament endlessly about the certain circumstance that we are abrasive towards, then maybe we'll allow it to be absolved. Maybe it will change if we constantly put that negative energy into that relationship, into that work circumstance, into whatever situation a person is dealing with in their health, their finances. There's a negative energy that we expend. And we think by constantly going over that negativity, constantly having an abrasiveness, constantly saying, Hashem, why? Why you have to do this to me? Why has life done this to me? We think that we can solve the situation through that negativity. But what we see here is the Baal Shem Tov is going to reveal that in fact, it can't be further from the truth. That in fact, what we need to do in order to be able to deal with the circumstances that we have, both on a practical level, but also on a spiritual level, to be able to access the inner self, a person needs to enter into the realm of acceptance. What the Kabbalists call the Midas HaHoid, which is to accept, to humble the self, to say, Hashem, I don't understand, and I'm totally accepting of every single circumstance down to the T. I totally accept it. It's not like I accept the 90% of my life and then the 10% of my life I'm sort of parking there and saying I don't accept it and I'm unhappy about it. But what we're learning and are about to learn, this short piece from the Baal Shem Tov, is totally accepting every single element, down to the negative elements, down to the abrasive elements, down to the uncomfortable elements, down to the things that we wish we could change, but we can't. We're going to notice a very beautiful understanding of what that does. Okay, what does it do when we cause an acceptance within our lives? How does that allow us to tap into a deeper state of spirituality? So the Baal Shem Tov says as follows. Ukesha'adam mekabel hayesurim be'ahava u'besimcha. When an individual accepts what we understand is called Yesurim, okay, and this is in the source that I sent out, which is highlighted. When a person accepts upon themselves Yesurim, Yesurim are afflictions. They are the external factors of life which we feel afflicted by. And they can manifest in people's lives in all different ways. There are a huge amount of frameworks that can provide a discomfort to a person. Just bringing an awareness to those things that create the discomfort, even from a meditative perspective of actually saying, 1 second, what is bothering me? We almost exist in a way of our lives where we have this negative feeling, a negative approach, and we just don't know what is making us upset. What is it? What are you upset about? Are you worried about something? Do you have something that you feel uncomfortable with? Is there something that you feel is in your hands to change and you're not doing it, etc., etc.? What are you upset about? The first thing is to define it. What is the Yesurim that you are feeling? What is causing that pain? What is causing that feeling of negativity within the self? The next step is to evaluate, are you able to change that? What can you do to change it? But even before a person takes that step, to first totally bring in that awareness of what is creating that problem or what is the problem into the self totally. Bring it in. Say, I fully accept this circumstance. Because once you can accept the circumstance, then you can deal with it in a healthy way. Then you can actually start to bring it in and integrate it and say, how am I going to deal with this? But listen to how the Baal Shem Tov spells out what takes place when a person does this from a spiritual perspective. What does it do for our souls? He says, when a person accepts upon themselves a suffering, okay, and a person can close their eyes and consider whatever form of suffering it is. It could be that you're hungry from a very minute perspective to a very deep perspective of, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of so many different things. I'm afraid of a conglomerate of circumstances that can befall me. Or I can just be in a state of being unsatisfied. Yeah, I am unsatisfied about the following. What do they need to do? Instead of fighting that, instead of avoiding that, which is what most people do, instead of distracting ourselves from that, the Baal Shem Tov says, Mekabel hayesurim be'ahava u'besimcha. Accept that framework, accept that form of discomfort. Feel that vulnerability. Be'ahava, with love, u'vesimcha, and happiness or joy. What happens when a person does that, when they totally accept it? He explains, Naseh hayichud. You create a form of connection or a oneness. We know that the highest form of the soul is referred to as the yichidah, the oneness that's inside of us. It's the fifth level of the soul, the upper realm of nothingness, almost giving ourselves totally over to Hashem. A person is able to make a yichud, a oneness, what we would refer to in a modern context, a state of meditative consciousness that can take place. V'hu mekarev u'mekasher u'medabek hakli v'haguf. And what you do, and the Baal Shem Tov in the previous parts of this piece explain that forms of suffering and the body, okay, when the body itself is uncomfortable. So I've been having issues with my back, for I was coughing yesterday and I just, somewhat damaged my back and I'm walking around, a little bit limp. But when you accept that, instead of fighting it in the mind, I'm abrasive to it, I'm going against it, or something sore in my body, or my mind hurts, or my teeth hurts, or my jaw hurts, and I'm going against it. He says here, when you accept the suffering or the pain, not because you want to suffer and you need to suffer, but you're going to absorb all of that externality and that pain that's external from the body or from the vessels of Yisurin, of affliction around, bechinas tzimtzum v'dim, which are referred to as a forms of tzimtzum, a small or a framework of minimizing God in our lives, where a person doesn't feel harchova, an expansivity. Okay, when we think about those moments of calm, or those moments of serenity, or those moments where everything is working out, what do you feel? You feel a state of harchova. So expansive, so great, so clear. And what happens when a person has an affliction or some pain or some suffering? They have tzimtzum. They feel a state of real, almost constricted state of being. Vidin and judgment. Elohim, which is the name of God, of judgment, of looking at this world and looking at it and feeling that everything is disparate, everything is somewhat disjointed. What happens when a person accepts this? El haneshama shuhu hasimcha v'achius v'aruchnius. I mean, this is the most beautiful thing. He says, when you accept those external factors, what happens is you draw them into the warmth and the fire of the neshama. Because the soul is a place which only knows happiness, chiyus, life, ruchnius, spirituality. So when a person enters into a state of saying, I totally accept, I'm almost going to see through all of this symptom, see through all of this disparity, see through all of this constriction, and I'm going to find a place of archava, of expansivity, of oneness, of warmth. What happens is they absorb, they almost convert the energies of pain and din and symptom and Elohim into the oneness of the soul. V'nisbotel, and they nullify hadin, v'nase rachamim, and turn it into compassion, turn it into oneness. Ve'etza hayeutza, and this is all found in the essential premise and meditation of what we say every single day in the Shema. Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. Have you ever asked, why does it say Ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha? Why doesn't it just say Ve'ahavta es Hashem? Why does it have to say Elokecha? So what the Baal Shem Tov is teaching us here is to love Hashem, your God. Hashem is the element of Yud Kei Vav Kei, when everything seems one, when I'm happy, when I'm feeling connected, when everything is unified, when everything makes sense and is clear, and I'm feeling expansive. And Elokecha is when everything seems disparate, when everything feels constricted, when everything feels topsy-turvy. And when I go ve'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, when I bridge those two things together, and I say Hashem Elokecha, that the Elokecha, that din, that tzimtzum, that constriction is actually Hashem as well. When I come along and I totally absorb all of that disparity into the oneness, and I say, I accept it. I fully bring it into myself. And I'm not going to constantly be abrasive like this, but I'm going to totally, integrate that into my being. Shu bechinas din, lekabloi besimcha. What you do is when you accept that with love, it says the kashroi el havaya shehu aneshama. What you essentially are doing, and if you maybe have heard this within the frameworks of Kabbalah, called taking up the sparks, lifting up the sparks. Okay, and we speak about it often, which is a reference to the nitzotzos, the sparks of kedusha, of holiness. And we talk about uplifting the sparks within physicality, within our engagement with life. But what we're seeing is one of the biggest tikkun olam, one of the biggest tikkunim, one of the biggest spiritual rectifications that can take place in life and in our own personal lives, allowing us to reach the highest states of spirituality, is not when everything is comfortable and not when everything is silent and serene, but rather when you have the noise and the difficulties of life murmuring in your ear, and you accept it and you bring it into a state of oneness as if it is part and parcel of that silence. In that process, a person is able to elevate all of that pain, all of that yisurin, and bring it close into the neshama. And what we see here is that a person is essentially bringing the light into the darkness. And this is extremely powerful teaching from the Baal Shem Tov about accepting our circumstances. It doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean that you just give up. It doesn't mean that you just come along and say, listen, I'm just going to suffer. It doesn't mean that you don't change what you can change. But it starts with first accepting the circumstance and not having that feeling internally of I'm abrasive, I'm going to push it away, I'm going to fight it away, but rather bringing it totally into the soul. And that is the neshama, which is such an amazing awareness to say that when we are feeling one, clear, harchova, expansive, and connected, that's our soul. Simcha stems from our soul. Now, the power of being able to accept all of that pain or whatever is in our lives, even in the minutiae of that pain, and bringing that in. And again, the rabbis speak about pain. Yisurin could be putting your hands into your pocket to take out, 2 rand, and you bring out 1 rand. That itself is referred to as Yisurin. I don't know who carries around rand anymore, But those elements of life, those simple things, oh, forgot the car keys inside, I have to go get them back again. That's now a moment of deep spiritual elevation, rather than saying, oh my gosh, you schmo, what are you doing? You know, you're constantly forgetful, you're constantly making this mistake, or whatever it is. Accept that circumstance deeply now gives us an opportunity to enter into the neshama and bring in a total tranquility within those forms of tzimtzum, of constriction. Okay, so that is the teaching from the Baal Shem Tov. I told you it was short and sweet, but let's see if anyone has something to add here. We'll let you unmute yourselves. You're allowed to unmute yourselves now. Yeah, any questions? Any comments, any statements? Andrea, we haven't heard from you for a long time. Not that we want to scare you away, but do you want to share something here if you're still with us? Or Matthew Laib, Clive, I know you are there in your own meditation. Yes, Carol, go for it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. It was just resonating with me what you were saying, because I use that a lot in my practice. That when individuals come to me and they have problems, I always say to them that when you own it, when you take it in and you own it, then you can work with it. Because when you fight it, you don't see a solution. But when you own it, you know you have to have a solution because you're now owning it. And then by owning it, you automatically work through it.
Yes, yeah.
So that's the way
And what we're seeing here is not only are you now working through it because it's in your radar and it's part of you, rather than it's something you're avoiding and pushing off, exactly. But you're also entering into the inner reservoir of energy and spirituality and simcha and dealing with it from that perspective. And it's amazing to see that a lot of healing simply takes place through acceptance. You know, as soon as you can accept a circumstance, be it a physical, ailment or a relationship issue or whatever the life circumstance may be, it's an amazing reality that once you actually fully accept it, you actually see a form of healing takes place and is infused into that specific circumstance, where it may be your muscle tension and you fully just accept it. Almost your muscles are like, no, I'm not going to accept it, but you just accept it. You feel your whole body relaxing. You feel your whole essence relaxing, and the neshama starts to permeate through our being. Yeah.
Because I feel that when you push it away, you're working with negative energy.
Yes.
And that takes more from you. Whereas if you take it in and you work with positive energy, you're giving back to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And this can be also, thank you for that, Carol. This can be also extended to any forms of negative relationships. Okay, so generally what we do is if there's a negative relationship, the archetypal response to that is to push away that individual, to push it out of the mind, to push it away from all experience. I've somewhat subjugated that individual to a negative blackwash, But what we are seeing from this, and it's brought down by the Vilna Gaon and in other forms of Kabbalistic teachings, that in fact, when you accept that individual totally in your life, even the enemy of that aspect, and you almost see the beauty and the light behind that individual, and you bring that deeply into you, it will transform that person as well. It's an amazing realization that you can actually transform a person through that acceptance, bringing them totally into your neshama, almost this fire of warmth and oneness that absorbs everything and brings it up into a deeper reality. So it's another way of turning in, this spiritual energy and allowing it to infuse all forms of negativity. And if you really boil down Judaism to its core, this is what it's all about. It's all about being able to see through the negativities and find God within it. You almost release the blocked and trapped energy within the pain. It's almost like an infection. You know, when there's an infection, it's a blocked energy or whatever it is that's trying to somewhat escape. But when you absorb it in, you release that infection and the pain of it also goes away. And that's what we're seeing within our own circumstances, be it the emotional pain, be it the physical pain, be it the circumstantial pain, be it the mental pain. You know, one of the biggest abrasions is when a person's studying meditation, you know, they see the problematic thinking that exists in their mind. And they can sometimes say, wow, I've got a busy mind now. You know, my mind is constantly, endlessly thinking. And they come abrasive to that as well. And they say, gosh, you idiot, you know, what are you doing thinking so much? Stop it. But the first step is to accept it. Wow, okay, I'm really, my mind is endlessly thinking about nothing. Or I'm feeling horrible now. I'm really feeling horrible. I don't have any energy. And instead of then looking after yourself and giving yourself the compassion of the neshama, we relegate ourselves to negativity and push that away, thinking it will just subside and we'll be able to carry on. But what we're seeing is the opposite needs to take place. The energy of Hoy needs to absorb those energies into the inner self, and that can then heal the circumstances around us. Yeah, so thank you again for engaging with us and coming to learn together. Alfonso, I saw that you had something you wanted to say there or ask. And if anyone has any final questions or statements, please feel free to do so. Yeah, Alfonso, go for it. Okay. We wish everyone a beautiful evening. Enjoy, and hopefully we'll get together tomorrow morning at 8:30. Lots of love and lots of bracha.